Cam Barr for Cam's Mortgage Minute on Wednesday, February 13th. Today I'll take a few minutes and talk to you about rent-to-owns. They've been in the media lately. CBC just did a report on an investigative report on them. And there is certainly some things that you need to consider if you're looking at this as an option. I guess the first thing for those of you who don't know what a rent-to-own essentially is folks go out, they find a house they really like. Let's say they just don't qualify for that house under the new mortgage rules. The vendor agrees to make some kind of an arrangement with them. The folks will pay X amount towards, let's say, rent, and there will be an additional sum over that in some cases. That's going towards building up the equity. Some sellers may require a down payment to start off the agreement. There's many different ways that these things can be structured. But typically how they are supposed to work in theory is the folks keep paying it at a set date. Now they have the option to purchase this property and own it. And in a perfect world, that's what would happen. They would go out, they'd get their financing, everything would be great. They've managed to get a purchase done, the sellers managed to sell a property. However, what works in theory doesn't always work in practice. And the big thing that's really unknown in all of this is where the mortgage rules will be and where the person will be. The reality is that the mortgage rules have changed so much in the last 2 years that somebody who potentially could have entered into one of these today might be in a totally different position. So it's very hard to guesstimate exactly where that's going to sit. The other thing with these is you have to really know your credit really well, and you have to know what qualification criteria is. Because you don't want to enter into one of these rent-to-owns and suddenly you're all excited, you enter into it, a year or two go by, you put a whole bunch of money into it, and suddenly you don't qualify anymore. Well, now what? Now your money is gone, it's forfeited. So that's definitely something you have to look at. Plus, also right now in the landscape, there is certainly some very honest, reputable rent-to-own companies, but there is some that are not so honest and reputable because it lends itself to that, because unfortunately people want to own a house, so they're desperate to get into it, and sometimes the arrangements and the agreements that are done are not exactly for the benefit of the purchaser. So what should you do? Well, if you're looking at a rent-to-own, what you should be doing is talking to a mortgage professional. Now, you don't have to talk to me. Don't call us if you don't want to. Talk to your bank, talk to whoever. The bottom line is you need to get an opinion and make sure that what you're thinking of, even if time froze still, a year from now or 2 years from now, mortgage rules didn't change, that you would still be eligible for making this purchase. So that's number one. The other thing is get a lawyer involved. You want to make sure that whatever money you're putting aside or however the deal is structured, it makes sense. Because if it's not structured the right way, down the road, the lender may not view it that way. Your down payment may not be the way as you see it, and suddenly you're not eligible anymore. Third, you have to make sure that there is basically adequate protection for you if something dire were to happen in your life. You couldn't execute on the agreement. Is there any provision, or is all your money forfeited? And the other thing that none of these things can predict or encapsulate is what the market value is going to be down the road, because that's another big important question. So there is a lot to be considering if you're going to enter into one of these rent-to-own scenarios. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying they don't work. I've seen them work in the past. The key is that you have to go into these things with eyes wide open. And that's not only from the purchaser's point of view, but also the seller's point of view. Sometimes if you've got a home and it didn't sell, and you know what, you need it sold, so you look at this and you take an arrangement, you have to make sure that arrangement is really going to work for you as well as the seller. So again, lots of things to consider. It's not something you should enter into lightly. You should get proper, adequate advice both legally, financially. These things are what have to happen in these scenarios. Now, if you're looking at a situation like this or you want to get a second opinion, we're always here and happy to help. It's Cam the Mortgage Man, the Auxilium team. We're always willing to, like I said, give you feedback, tell us what you're up to. We'll try to steer you in the right direction. And hopefully we can accomplish that and point you in something that's going to work for you. And if you are looking to get into the market, like I said, let us know and we'll be here and ready to help. Anyway, I hope this has been informative for you, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow on Valentine's Day.